It's been a while since I gave it an update, but basically one word for this update is floorboards, or 2 words, however that is. That's all this is about, is getting the floorboards in. It's a lot of work, a lot of time-consuming process. Got them in, they look good. They're not permanently in, as you'll see, because the car's got to come back apart. But anyways, take a look at this. Yesterday we kind of upgraded these brackets from what we did have. We ended up putting a tube in there, as you can see, and then we put this here. We ended up going to use 3/8 bolts on this to bolt the cross member across the floor to hold the floors, and also it will hold my seat. And for NHRA spec, we have to use 3/8 bolts, so that's why we put these little sleeves in here. And you can see I'm getting better on the TIG. There's a little bit of TIG with no filler there. I also take those, but we ground them all down flat. So those brackets there are all done. And then the last piece of the puzzle we hadn't even started to fabricate up was the front part of the cross member per NHRA spec. This cross member here had to go in, and we're back the allowable 16 inches for NHRA. We're actually in front of that quite a ways, so no problems. And in this here, we sleeved the tube. Alright, these are the sleeves we welded in here for NHRA spec as well. You can see the tubes go through for our 3/8 bolts. Those were also TIG welded on, but as you can see, we had to grind the tops of them perfectly. We're working on putting the floorboard supports in. This one here, we cut a little short, so we had to lengthen it up, but it'll eventually be cut out in the middle anyways to clear the drive shaft. But for right now, we're going to leave them across there until we get ready to put the longer pieces in where the drive shaft go. Got them clamped up here. We're going to put our brackets here underneath them to support each of them. And then we will weld them to the sill after the body goes back on for the final time. Right now we're just tack welding them right there, as you can see, to hold them in place while we build the rest of the floor. And then we'll take the floor out, and then we can take the body back off as it is. We're working on getting the supports in for the floorboard supports, I guess. Made these little spacers up here that'll 3/8 hole. It'll go in here, and those will run a screw down from the top here through it. Hold all that together, keep it stiff. We got 3 of those in right now, and we're working on getting the last one in. It's clamped up and ready to go. Alright, we got all the brackets welded in for the floor supports. Spacers in. We got them bolted up with some temporary bolts. Come out alright. Still got to do the final welding on the brackets though. There's the mess from the other side. Getting pretty busy under here now. We're still working on floorboard stuff. Kind of got figured out how we're going to run the support for the tunnel. We got this loosely made up here. Nothing's welded down. It's just been cut a little bit there, and we bent it. And then we got this straight down lined up with the car. We're kind of trying to fit this rear floor pan in here. Doesn't look like it's probably going to work. We're going to give it another shot and see what happens, but not sure it's going to make it. Note to self, don't make parts before you're ready for them, because this is what happens. We got all the angles cut, got those welded, they're all clamped down. The next thing we're getting ready to do is weld these pieces down here where they'll go up into the body to help support the rear floor and finish off the transmission tunnel there. We're waiting for a buddy of ours to get back the rest of the tunnel there. He was going to help us out and make it up, so we're kind of waiting for that. But we also don't have any pattern making material so we can make the floorboards, so we're skipping that for the moment. We worked on getting the seat mounting figured out. The seats will probably mount to these tubes here. We haven't figured out if we're going to cut them off short or leave them long for extra support. We can decide that right before we weld them in. I got both sides there done. And next step is going to be to bead roll the floor, make it fit. And then I can do the other side and then the back pieces there. Spent about 2.5 to 3 hours figuring up all the bead rolls and then rolling it out. I got it all done. Here it is fit in the car. Just a couple little minor adjustments. I have to grind there a little on the edge to clear the tunnel. But other than that, it's ready to go down. Of course, we can't do it now because we got to paint everything first. Got the lip here done up. We'll weld this down here. Then there's tubing that runs under here for the seat. We'll weld down there. And then same way back here, weld down and all along the corners there and up front. I been working on the floorboards. I got the driver's side all made up and the passenger side all made up. They're just clamped on, bolted in place loosely right now. I started on the rear one. I got it made and then had a buddy of mine, Chris, put it on a brake and bend it right there, and I did a little bit more trimming on it, got it to fit pretty good. I still have to make a lip right here, like this side here. I got to make that lip next. Got to bead roll that, and then I'll cut that down to match it. So that's going to be my next step, is to bead roll this. I still need to trim that slightly because it actually overlaps here, so I got to measure that. This is the pattern I use for the rear floorboards. It's pretty close left side and right, so I just want to use this for both sides. Made little notations on each side for what differences there is. And then this is the sheet cut out. I've got all my design laid out. This here is where the body mount is. So it's lifted up a little bit to clear the body mount. And then right now I'm doing the downward impression on the floor before anything is bent. And this piece should be just a little bit long. Shouldn't be too long. So I can do some final fitting once it gets in there. But I'm doing my very first downward impression on this piece. And I'll go around this twice for this bottom part. And then I'll switch out the dies and do some other bead work. This is just the first step in the bead roll. Kind of slow and boring, but I'll show you what I'm doing here. Anybody's ever interested in this? This is a Mittler Brothers bead roller. It's a really nice roller. It is fairly expensive, but it's made in USA, made in Missouri. Now here I'm going to go ahead and go another depth. And this will be my final depth right here. But it's a really nice bead roller. It was expensive, but I think it was worth it compared to some of the other Chinese stuff I've bought and used. Like that English wheel, it's not square, but I can use it for little jobs that I need. I'm just going to go around this one more time, and then I'll change the dies and put the smaller, tighter impressions in the middle coming up. I try to keep everything balanced. If I go down on the edges, I go up in the middle because I don't want to keep stair-stepping it down. The panel does warp, but it keeps warping down a little bit if you can kind of go back and forth with your direction of your impressions. Corners aren't fun, that's why I'm going pretty slow. If you mess up, you can sometimes go back over it, especially if you go a little deeper depth, and you'll probably never notice it. At least only you'll notice it, no one else probably will. But I'll show you what happens when we switch over the dies. Alright, here's my first impression. It don't look much from the top side, but from the back side with no writing, it's a little more obvious what I did. Now I'll pop these lines up with a 1/4 inch bead roll. Alright, for the next one, I'm doing 1/4 inch round beads. That's what your die looks like, got male and female. It's squared off, as you can see, but it'll still round it up. Since I want to go up, I'm putting it on the bottom. If I would have marked it from the bottom, I would put this on the top and flip my piece over, but since I marked it from the top, I'm kind of doing it backwards from the easier way, but it still works plenty good. This bead roller is adjustable. The top die is adjustable in and out. It's also important to wear gloves. Your hand on all the sheet metal. As you cut it, it's got lots of little burrs. You want to try and get as many burrs off as you can, because if you do a bead roll over a burr, it'll want to mark your tool up, and it'll also leave a weird impression in your metal. So now I'm going to be going up. All these are up. I always like to mark a starting point and a finishing point, which goes in the middle of the bead. So crank this down until it touches. I've done this enough so I know what depth to make all of them. This one here, you just go straight down the line. This also has adjustable speed, but a lot more controllable, slower speeds for a novice, especially like me. I try to keep everything uniform, do everything the same. You don't have to do it the way I do it, but do everything the same. See right there in the middle? Now I'm done. And then I count when I back up, so I make sure all of them are the same. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I can go over here. My line's a little short, but I can see it down there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And just continue this on for the rest of them. Alright, here's the final product before it goes into the sheet metal brake. All these are popped up. Easy to see from that angle there. This is down, or up from this way, and these go down that way. And then I did just a decorative bead that I had done on the others to match it up with them. And then did a fade out here. So now it's going to get broke right there, bent up, and then the rear floor will be ready to grind and fit. Just got the right rear floorboard back from Chris from bending it. I've been working on getting it fitted. It's fairly close. I got marked where I need to trim it a little more. Hopefully 1 or 2 more times in, and it will be there. As you can see, we got quite a mess going on. Got a grinder out, clamps out, everything else out, and try and get this thing fit. And hopefully here in just a little bit it'll be fit. And then we're working on the master cylinder, trying to figure out how we're gonna make the reservoir caps come off and go on easily. We decided we can't use their spring-loaded hold downs because those lids are right under the floor. We don't want to cut a gaping hole in the floor, lose all the strength. So we think we have something figured up. Got all the floorboards pretty much fit in, took them all back out. Now we're working on getting the tunnel fit in. Got everything sitting in there. We're about ready to drill holes to use Cleco fasteners to hold the tunnel in. And then we'll have to put our hoops, our heavier steel hoops around to hold the floorboards in. That will go from here over there. We got those pieces made up. We got our supports cut out that will go underneath here, slide back into there after we get the tunnel out. Got one for right here and then one for right here. And what we're trying to do right now, we'd like to be able to weld these in because they will weld across from here over to here, and we'd like to cut this all out and go ahead and get these welded up while everything's in the car so it fits right. But we got to be able to get the body back off, and that involves us having to pull this whole structure out either in one piece or multiple pieces. So what we came up with are these little brackets here, these U. I clamped 4 of them together in the mill, milled out this little groove here, and they will fit right down here like this, perfectly around the tube. We'll tack weld it in place, cut our tacks out here that are holding these in, and see if the floor will come out. And then when we go back together, these will still be on the body, and all we have to do is set that back right down in this little saddle, and then we'll know that the floor is right back to where it needed to be. You can see right here we got one clamped up, going to be welding here in just a few minutes. And then we'll cut the tacks loose, see if we can get it out first with the dash in, mainly because we don't want to pull it out. And then if we can't, then we'll pull the dash. Be really nice if we can get this thing out in one shot versus cutting it down the middle and not being able to weld these on until after the body comes back from the interior painted. Alright, we just got the tack welds cut out of here, so the floor is just sitting in our saddles, so we're ready to attempt to get it out. We took everything back out so we could get our fixture or our subfloor welded in. We got it all welded up together, pulled it out, welded underneath everything. The bad thing is it warped right here at each major weld, pulled the tube in. So you can see we line up with our deal there, but we are off quite a bit there. So we're going to have to heat it up and bend it back straight again, and then we can proceed from there. Unfortunately, it's one step forward, one step back in this situation. We also warped it there, and we cut it out, the middle part, so we could put our hoop in. But when we put it back in the car to weld it, we saw that it was off, so we got to get it straight first. So we'll get these bars straightened back out and then work on that hoop. Alright, we got the floor support all straightened back out, everything's lined back up. Got all the blocks in place and tightened it down. Got the tunnel back on, and then we lightly tacked in the support for the tunnel. I'll show you here. If I can show you underneath what it looks like. There's what she looks like. We'll end up welding that in. Welding the tunnel probably from under here onto that hoop. And we still got another one to put up here where that's not cut out yet. You can see we cut that one out and filled the ends in right there. So it's looking pretty good. Hopefully tomorrow we'll get the other hoop back in, and then we can work on the shifter. We just got the shifter in today, so we'll start working on a mount for that. Alright, we just got our tabs welded on for the shifter. Now we're fitting the tunnel. We're going to get the tunnel fit on, and then we'll probably tack weld the rest of the tunnel on it so we can move it all out in one piece. Alright, we got this tacked on. Getting ready to pull the plecos out. Make sure we can get this out in one shot. If not, we're going to have to cut it back apart. So this is kind of a test. See here real quick if it'll come out. Man, look at that. It comes out. Here she is.
Success.
Floorboards have pretty much all been final fitted. They're not going to be welded down until the body goes back on. Body has to come off, so all these will come back out. We got them all in, shifter mounted. Still got to drill a hole where the cable's going to go through it. And then we've been working on brakes. We didn't really have a good way to pop the tops on the cap. Use these little wires here and then clip on. Well, it's so close to the floor there was no way we had enough leverage to pop, but we could pop one off but not the inner one, so the outer one. So we made up this little tube here, cut a piece of chromoly tubing, 1 5/8 chromoly tubing, fit that real good, then milled out a piece here, a spacer, goes in between these bolts here, go through it where it mounts to the frame, and then bolt here goes through the middle up here, and then
to a nut that's been welded on the tube. So that way we can pull the screw out and the caps just slide off. We can fill them from a hole in the floorboards if we decide to do that, or use a mirror and a syringe. Would probably have to be a syringe no matter what, because we're not going to make that big a hole in the floorboard. So, and here's what it looks like with the floorboard removed. You can see how it just barely going to clear the floor where it goes right there. Alright, here's a closer look at that bracket. Got it off the master cylinder right now. Piece of tubing cut out, and then hole sawed that tubing and welded it to it. And we ended up just cutting a small hole in the floor here. If you can see or not, probably not. Yeah, you can. You can see down there in the master cylinders, so we can see our fluid level, and we can fill them with a small hose and a syringe up here. Car's still on the dolly, but we're getting ready to clean out the spot on the lift so we can take it out. Floors are fitted. I went ahead and mounted all the tire and wheel assemblies up. Let's see what she looks like without the quarter panels on it. Looks pretty good without even the quarter panels on it. So. Next step is on the ground.
Alright, that's going to do it for this update. Next time around, I'm going to try and do a video here fairly quickly about the bumper. I was going to put the bumper in there, but just going to take up too much time. This was a long enough video as it was. And then we'll be putting the car on the ground. But anyways, thanks for watching. And as always, please like and subscribe.